Hi, I'm Faster EFT practitioner Kim Brown. Glad you could join me today. And with us also today is Alan Combies, a Faster EFT practitioner from California. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks, Kim. Really happy to be here. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. Now, Alan, you say you have a passion for empowering people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So empowering people, I really see that as, putting people back to their inner guidance or inner wisdom. I see it as a subtractive process. I think that typically, if we're not performing very well, then it's typically because we have a lot on our mind.
Mm.
And I think the less we have on our mind, the better we do. And that's really what I see my work, and that's what I see as empowerment. It's really recognizing that that's how it works. And any way I can get somebody to embody that and to sort of awaken to that more and more, I think is what I love to do. That's what I'm passionate about.
So there's something involved with letting go that probably people don't quite understand, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So letting go to me is really about habitual thinking. And when I say habitual thinking, it's what's the definition of a habit? It's really something you do over and over and over again until it becomes unconscious or a part of your subconscious mind. And so that thinking applies to that as well. And when there's emotion linked to that and to that subconscious habitual thinking, then it can be happening under the scenes as well, so to speak. And so really uncovering that and addressing that and letting that go with various tools um, and understandings, I think is really the key again to to that empowerment that we're talking about, to having less on your mind, to better performance, to being more in the moment, to being open to more insight, creativity, wisdom, if you will. Yeah.
So how do you go about helping people get in touch with that place?
Yeah. So I really, really love faster EFT tapping or eutaptics training, which involves tapping on meridian points. However, it's not really about the tapping, as I've come to understand it. It's really about addressing. It's about uncovering those thought patterns that we're talking about and aiming at them, if you will, which is bringing awareness to them, and doing what we call defractionation, which is essentially, you know, Kim, if you think about these habitual subconscious thoughts, you can think about them as self-hypnotic trances. I mean, that's the way I see it. Because again, it's something that we rehearse over and over again until we don't realize we're doing it. Now, if you think about when you have a problem, you tend to ruminate on that, right? You tend to think about it, and our sort of default is to think that if we go into our heads and bounce around in there and um, you know again ruminate and look at it all these different angles, we think the answer is going to be up there. But what I'd like to do at a lot of my seminars is one of the first things I ask my attendees is I say, when do you get your best ideas? And invariably they say in the shower, on a long drive, on a nice walk in nature. They never say when I'm stirring and stewing on something. It's never that's never the answer. And so if we uncover, if we look at our problems as self-hypnotic trances, that is, we go into the trance, we go into our minds, and we do it again and again and again until it becomes a habit, then we can look at that. What is trance? Trance is essentially going in our minds and feeling something as if it were real. So we're essentially hypnotizing ourselves, or we've had an experience in life that we choose to go back to, or we equate it to being the cause of what we're experiencing in the moment. So in other words, we just go back to it over and over again. We rehearse it in our minds. The event has been over. Anything that happened that's not happening now is in the past, which doesn't exist anymore, except how we carry it in our mind and how our bodies react to that mind, that thought. So if we look at our problems as self-hypnotic trances, there is a term in hypnotherapy called fractionation, which is essentially how deep will you go into that trance. It's sort of like, well, in hypnotherapy, if I were to put you into a relaxed state or trance state and then bring you up again and then put you back into that state and then bring you up again and then put you back into that state, the theory is each time you go into trance, you go in easier and deeper. And hypnotherapists coined that term fractionation. Well, Robert Gene Smith, creator of Faster EFT, said, well, what we're doing is actually pulling you out of these trances. And that's really what I see it as. We're pulling people out of their problem trance. So we're defractionating their hypnotic trance. And that's really one of the main ways that I help my clients bring them back into the moment. And it's in that moment, again, when do we get our best ideas? In a shower, on a walk, when we're in that, when we have very little on our minds. And so when we are able to pull ourselves out of that self-hypnotic trance, which quite often is accompanied with a fight or flight response in the nervous system, once we calm that nervous system and our mind begins to calm and clear, then we're more in touch with that wisdom, that inspiration, that creativity. Now, it's important to note, I believe we're never out of touch with it. Like, it's always there, right? But our experience of it fluctuates. And our experience of it fluctuates depending upon really the state of the mind, our state of our thinking in that moment.
Do you find that people readily accept this concept, or do they say, no, that feels weird? This feels normal to me. It's hurting me. It's not good for me, but this feels normal to me.
Yeah, quite often, actually. And, it really depends upon the client and the issue they're experiencing. But because a lot of this stuff can be so habitual, like we've been thinking it, we really make it our identity. We make it bigger than it is. We think that we are, it's sort of the whole idea of who am I going to be without this? It's almost like I've had sessions. I do this because I've had sessions with clients where, they have a big shift in their understanding and their awareness, and it's almost like they were leaning on something before and now it's gone. If that makes sense. It's like they were attached to this pattern of thought, and when it's gone, they're not sure what to do with it. But the key point there, I think, to your point, is to always be pointing in the direction of hope. And I think one of the biggest things I want to offer my clients is what I call the education piece. And that is, not when my clients come to see me, it's not just about, well, let me just do this thing called Faster EFT on you and send you on your way. Right? It's more about, I'm interested in empowering my clients. And that means continuing to educate them through this journey that we call life, because most of us have never had that kind of education.
Right.
We were taught how to read and write and how to tie our shoes, but we weren't taught how this mind-body system works. And I'm still learning every day. And I think there is no end to that learning. But if we understand that and we continue to explore, right? Continue to explore what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, and begin to question it, really. Begin to question our experience. Byron Katie has the work. She says, is this really true? If you have this idea, this thought, question it. Is this really true? Well, guess what? None of it is really true. So you don't even have to ask the question. just be aware of that fact. And oftentimes that alone can bring you down into the moment and give you enough space to sort of recognize what it is that you're doing and sort of ride out that thought storm or that belief system, if you will, if that makes sense.
Yes. One of the most difficult concepts for me to grasp hold of when I was introduced to Faster EFT was that it was not him and her and that and it, but that it was what was happening up here. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, boy. Well, that's what we're all up against, isn't it? And you're certainly not alone. And I still fall into that from time to time, even after doing this for, 7 years or whatever, 8 years, 9 years. I forget. Yeah, we all fall, but see, that's just called being human. I mean, isn't it amazing that we've been gifted this incredible ability to make stuff up in our minds and play that game, And so it's an amazing thing, and it's nothing to be judgmental about when we catch ourselves in it. But yes, there are people that fall into that misunderstanding and can't seem to find a way out. In other words, it's really a state of intense victimhood where it's everybody else's fault but theirs. And really, until a person is willing to just even question that for a moment, that's the crack in the door, if you will, that will begin to let in some truth, truth and insight and awareness that even though it really seems like it's the look on that person's face that's making them feel pissed off, that pissed off feeling can never come from that look. None of our feelings can come from outside of us. None. They all 100% are being generated from inside of us. And those feelings are representing not that look, because that look is outside of us. It's representing how we are perceiving it. It's representing, we see that look and we essentially make a story up about it. We make judgments and decisions and behaviors and based on opinions and past experiences. And we write that story, and that story sends a signal to our body just about immediately. And that is what we're feeling. And so, like Byron Katie says, is that true? No, none of it is true. Again, none of it is true. And being able to step back and look at that from that perspective, I think, has really profound implications for people in all walks of life. Because again, whether I'm doing business coaching or working with other coaches or working with a client during, for relationships or finance or, they have traumas or whatever. It all boils down to that. It all boils down to the same thing. And so addressing what you hold inside, recognizing that it is your creation, that you are the one producing it, and transcending it. So that's really the key. And to answer your question in short, I think persistence and coming at it with compassion. My hunch is with you, I don't know, but my hunch is with you, whenever you finally saw that piece, it was because there were people around you that were there for you to point you in that direction, and they were coming at it with love and compassion and understanding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My practitioner was so faithful and was so willing to take whatever I threw at him, and he was just calm, cool, and collected. And he did educate me. And I want you to tell us about your transformational coaching and what you do in that, because that is a major part of this whole process is the education part. Yeah. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So this was really, this all, the sum and whole of what I do now is all just bits and pieces that I've learned sort of out there in the field, if you will, in the trenches, of doing this. And I've made a ton of mistakes along the way, but I've learned from those mistakes. And I'm still learning, like I said, and that's never going to change. That's never going to
Mhm.
end. Uh,
And that's a
but
good thing. It's good for learning to be lifelong.
absolutely, I think you're in trouble if you think you've got it figured out. That's when you're in trouble. So, yeah, so the education piece was born about because sort of what I alluded to earlier, I would have clients and, they would come in to see me once and they would sort of suspect that one session would fix all of their
Mm.
problems and they would be, um, life would be perfect after that. And that's when I began realizing, okay, then there's a piece here that they need to understand what this process is about. And so I began really what I called being more transparent. I took ownership for what I saw was happening with my clients. Eventually, I figured it out, and I became more transparent in that I began saying, okay, here's how this is going to go. Here's how this process is going to work. This is what we're going to do when we spend the time together. We're going to reserve time to really examine what you want to get out of the session, where you want to be eventually. Um, we're going to I'm going to ask you a lot of questions to really uncover how you're producing your current results, which you don't like. And then we're going to spend ample time addressing that structure, addressing those thoughts. And then we're going to reserve time for coaching and debriefing. I'm going to share with you everything I can that I think might help you because, we're spending this 2 hours together, right? In this session with my client, we're spending 2 hours together. But outside of this 2 hours, you're going to be with yourself away a lot more
Exactly.
often than you're going to be with me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so again, that's where that empowerment piece was born for me. Uh, my clients, I do have a lot of clients that come back and see me multiple times. Maybe not, every week for a year, but they'll come in spurts, 3 to 6 sessions, and then maybe go 2 or 3 months and then come back. And um, I have clients that I've been seeing, for 3 or 4 years that way. And I think it's because there is no end to this exploration, and because we all have places where we don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that support, having somebody where you can reflect and um, and examine that, where you're just having that misunderstanding, where you're not seeing it as clearly as you should or can. So so yeah, that's really how I do the education piece. But I also do, I do mentoring where I point to that for other practitioners so they can be aware of that with their clients and of course with themselves. I like to say, well, our friend Deirdre McGuire once said uh, that life is like a session. Life is a session. Life is one big session, right? And it's true. What we're teaching our clients is what we ultimately need for ourselves, but it doesn't end in that session. It's life skills. So by definition, a life skill is something that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
So it's when we're ingrained with thinking that it's outside people, places, and circumstances that are causing our feelings. When we're ingrained with that, when we grow up with that, when we're indoctrinated into that belief system, it's not going to take 2 hours to see through that and figure it all out. You're going to need ongoing support,
Right.
and that's really where I see the education piece coming in and being so important. I still have places where I don't see it, and I reach out for help. You know, um, and thank goodness, I think we have a great community.
Right, right. And it is powerful to have a practitioner who works on themselves. I mean, that's what you would want. You want a healthy doctor. You want teacher who's continuing education, you want a practitioner who's doing the same.
100%. And, I'm doing a mentor program right now with practitioners. And that again is, to me, it's the number one thing that I'm hoping to get across to these practitioners is it's always a reflection of what you're feeling inside. I often say, if you're with a client and that seems like that client's not doing it right, or it's a tough client, I say, guess what? The client can't do it wrong.
That's right.
Right? Which means they're doing it how they're doing it. It's our job to be flexible, to be in the moment, to be without judgment, and to get curious. I learned that. I remember when that first really clicked for me was I heard Robert Smith, creator of Tactics, Faster EFT, said, I just look at a client as, he says, I step back and I look at the big picture and I just look at it like a puzzle. And I went, oh yeah, that's it. It's that curiosity piece. It's like, when you got a puzzle in front of you, you don't go, man, who made this puzzle? This is ridiculous. This is not working for me. Right? You don't do that. You go, okay, let's get curious and have some fun and see how this works. And so when we're having an issue, a pain, a problem, or a symptom, there's a structure to that. And so as a practitioner, it's my job to get curious about it and see how the puzzle is laid out.
Very good. Very good. So tell us what you do in your mentorship program, because Faster EFT practitioners do have educational opportunities available to them all the time, and mentorship is one of those. So get down into it just a little bit more and tell us some more about it.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I think that what you just said there, Faster EFT, I think is set apart in that way, in that there is a community, a support system, practitioners that are serious about getting certified and really getting the training are encouraged to stay plugged in. And again, I think just like my practice and how I approach clients and everything else was from the School of Hard Knocks, I did have support along the way, but I definitely didn't have it the way up and coming practitioners are offered it now. I think it's great. And so the way this program came about was I was involved with a level 2 mentorship program through Faster EFT. And then I joined in on a couple level 1 just to kind of, meet the up and coming practitioners and kind of get a feel for what was going on in the community. And I loved it. And I thought, gosh, this is good stuff. This is what needs to keep happening. And then one day I sat back and I said, I was just asking myself, how can I serve? Like, what can I do to serve right now? And then the idea came to serve in that capacity, serve other practitioners, and contribute to that sort of support system. Again, when I was up and coming, I sort of forged my own way in the early years in a lot of ways. But my practice didn't, and my growth really, I think, expanded exponentially when I really sort of plugged in and started attending more live events and getting to know Robert and other practitioners and, Facebook and of course Habilitat, going to Habilitat several times. All of those things, what they do, I think, Kim, is they reinforce the behaviors of being able to actually go out and congruently say, this is what I do, this is how I can help you. And that is what I think practitioners need the most. And again, it comes down to support, and it also comes down to, my one trick pony spiel here, but coming back down to understanding how we create our experience, right? So the mentorship program is, again, something that just came to me about 4 months ago. And all I did was advertise it, or not even advertise it. I think I made a post in a practitioner page on our Facebook page, and I said, would anybody be interested? I had this idea, would anybody be interested? And a lot of hands went up. There's a lot of interest. And I just had the idea. And so basically what I'm doing is combining one-on-one mentorship with group mastermind. So it's really combining those two things. And we've just completed our first wave, if you will, of that. And I sort of split it into two. So we did 3 months of mentorship, one-on-one, and now we're moving into the mastermind community, which I'm really excited about. And I like that structure because getting to know all of the participants and really working very closely with them and giving them that really focused support has had big payoffs. It has, I mean, I've gotten payoffs just from seeing the growth and also reflecting and being able to hone my skills in that way. But to see what these practitioners are doing in their business and how they're feeling about themselves, it's really, really exciting. And now going into the mastermind program, we've had all that coaching. Now we're moving into the mastermind where we get together and we get to hash out ideas. And, with the mastermind, I don't see it as me being the practitioner going, okay, this is what you need to do and blah, blah, blah. I really see it as us as a team getting together and supporting each other. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's going to be times when one of us needs support, whether that's a tapping session or a little coaching or just a little guidance or a little, rah, whatever it might be, whatever that person needs in that moment. So, yeah, so it's again, I feel like it's in its early stages, but it's a format that I really like, and could not be happier with the people that I've attracted into the group. And I'm actually, as we speak now, I'm in the process of interviewing some new participants. We have 2 new people in right already, and I'm interviewing 3 new people in, and I'm interviewing 2 more in the next week or so. So it's growing, and I'm really excited about that. And if it goes well, this is something I plan on doing year round, at least with the mastermind calls. So, yeah.
Great. Mm-hmm. I
Mm-hmm.
thank you for being a pioneer in all of this. It's wonderful to see that we're not just rigid and this is how it is, and we can't grow and learn and change. I think that's wonderful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that, what Faster T and this understanding and this training does is it gives us a platform for growth. And, what we choose to do with that. I mean, it's not pigeonholed for one thing in life. You can transpose it into anything you're doing. If you're working a job, or you're a school teacher, or you're a computer programmer, or you're a coach, or you're whatever, it doesn't really matter. You can take this understanding into life, family, churches, organizations. So yeah, its only really limitation is our imagination. So,
and it's each of us heal and grow, and we affect our little corner of the world, and the more the merrier.
That's exactly it. It sounds corny, I know it, but we are, I think especially Kim, you and I, and I assume most people listening to this, in the community, people who are practitioners or coaches or people who are looking to make a difference in people's lives, we owe it to ourselves and our profession and the people we work with to always be exploring and learning and growing ourselves. Yes. Because we are the beacons, and the more we can do that, funny enough, the more people will be attracted to you and to me. Yes. And whoever's doing this work, and because they see it. I always when I was first learning this stuff, I was really embarrassed to share it with my friends and family because I thought it was kind of weird. I mean, I was totally getting into it, but it felt like I was in two different worlds until finally I had changed so much that people started going, so what is this thing you're doing again? You're different. What's going on? Right?
Right.
I know you've probably experienced the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really how it works, isn't it? You just keep working on yourself and the rest will tend to take care of itself.
Well, Alan, do you have anything that you would like to share with those watching today, that if you just could get one concept expressed, what would that be?
You know what I've been sharing lately, Kim, is what I call, and actually I borrowed this term from a coach of mine, calibration. And what I mean by that, the way I see it anyway, the way it's really helped me out is recognizing calibration. So recognizing when you are, basically when you're getting triggered. So beginning to be aware of that more and more, calibrating yourself. So for instance, for a practitioner, if they're in a session and they are listening to their client tell their story, if you are starting to feel anything like agitation or insecurity or anger or sadness or fear or any of those things, then you can use that as a way to calibrate how much you are in your story
Ah.
or how much you are in the present moment. Because, again, speaking to a practitioner, if we are with a client, we're going to be able to serve them much more if we have less in our mind and we're more in the moment. So if we can calibrate that, and the way we calibrate it, of course, is by how we're feeling. So again, it comes down to recognizing that the feeling doesn't mean we have a tough client, or doesn't mean we're not good practitioners, or it doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means we're in our head. And if we just recognize that, if we calibrate that and use that to calibrate. Now I'm using this example in a practitioner client setting, but guess what? Like we said earlier, this is life, right? Life is one big session. So if you're going to make a phone call, if you're in a heated argument with a spouse, or if you are trying to parent a young child, or any of these things, if you begin to calibrate yourself and recognize where you're at in relation, and sometimes, you're not always going to be way up in your head, you're not always going to be way zenned out. You're probably going to be at some degree of that, and that's okay. Recognizing it is the key. And so even if you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, that's enough to take the next step forward, and to be, just to be more present, and to trust that what you need will come through.
Very good. Very good. Yes, it did. And baby steps are important. We need to give ourselves permission to take that step and stand still for a minute and take another step if we need to. It doesn't have to be leaps and bounds all the time.
100%. And I think that is such an important key, what you just said there, because so much of the time what we're really up against is just self-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Self-judgment, and why am I feeling this? I shouldn't be feeling this. No, again, you're human, right? That's not the issue. The issue is you're just misunderstanding where it's coming from. And you can do something about it, but the judgment piece, I think, is what gets people tripped up more than anything else.
Yeah.
They feel guilty for feeling it, or they feel like a bad person for feeling it, when really they're just feeling oftentimes a fleeting thought. And I think they say we have something like 60,000 thoughts a day. So in a sense, give up trying to control all of that. I mean,
Phew.
that's more than a full-time job, right? Yeah, so give up trying to control it all and just recognize how it works.
That's right. And if I'm feeling something, it's because I'm thinking something. And
100%.
maybe notice what that thought is.
Yeah, and it sometimes, again, when it's really habitual, we're not going to see the thought right away.
Hmm.
But with a combination, what I found is with a combination of the tapping, which of course relaxes the body and defractionates, combination of that and reminding yourself or just deepening your understanding that you are just experiencing a thought can sort of loosen the lid of that jar for you,
Hmm.
and begin to move you in the direction of what we call flipping or uh, re-imprinting, which is basically just changing the structure. And it can happen without tapping. Tapping really, really helps, comes in handy, but embodying that understanding alone can help you see your thoughts from a new perspective, which is the ultimate in transformation and empowerment, I think. So,
Very true.
mm.
Well, do you have any transformational weekends you're planning in the near future?
Thank you again for asking. Nothing planned, but I have been thinking about doing something in the fall, which is actually coming up quite quickly.
It is.
So if I do, well, I can give you my information and people can get a hold of me if they're interested in doing something like that.
Yes.
And those are a lot of fun because I do them here in Los Angeles. I'm quite close to LAX, and essentially it's just a day or sometimes 2 days of getting together and doing this education piece, but also doing the transformation piece.
So you
And
do tapping as well as education then?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, lots of tapping because that is, I like to see I see the tapping as the intervention piece.
Mhm.
So it's like, there's a in my practice, it's a consultation, it's an intervention, which is really just intervening with all of the habitual thinking. It's the educational piece, and then that leads to more empowerment, which ultimately leads to a person thriving in
Mhm.
life. And that's sort of what I see as the big picture and and purpose behind what I do. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
thank you for being with us today, Alan.
Kim, thank you so much. I really love what you're doing with these interviews, and you're making a big impact, I know, with people, bringing what you know and people into the awareness of individuals. So thank you for what you do. Really, really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Thank you. And I'll have all of Alan's contact information at the end of this video. Alan and I thank all of you for watching today. And remember, no matter what you've experienced in the past, today is a new day. See you next time.